and also our speaker, which I know is going to be dynamic. I can just feel it. She's got a tremendous spirit, and she is definitely a wonderful way to end the afternoon. So now on behalf of SHRM, I am pleased to introduce our speaker for the session, Ms. Karlyn Borysenko. Karlyn is an experienced speaker, a transformational coach, and organizational consultant. She is the owner and principal of Zen Workplace, a New Hampshire-based consultancy dedicated to making working environments better and helping individuals to be more fulfilled in their professional lives. She works with leaders around the world to develop their teams, train their managers, drive productivity, increase employee engagement, satisfaction and retention, and cultivate amazing organizational cultures. Wow. That was a mouthful, Karlyn. Please join me in welcoming Karlyn. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, this will be the only time in my life where I'm allowed to say I'm an opening act for Harry Connick Jr., right? Now, I can't sing or dance, so I hope that won't be a problem. But what I can do is talk about employee engagement for about 75 minutes. Does that sound all right? Yeah. All right. Well, like she said, my name is Karlyn Borysenko. I'm an organizational psychologist. I'm the owner and principal of Zen Workplace, and I work with organizations all over the world to help them create amazing working environments. Now, as part of that, I do a lot of one-on-one coaching, and really a lot of the presentation today is drawn from that coaching, because when an organization brings me in to coach their people, whether it's the problem children or the leaders that they want to develop, I always maintain confidentiality. So I'm not reporting back to them what people are saying to me, and because of that, I hear all the things they're never going to tell you. I hear all the things they're never going to tell their boss. I hear all the things they only tell their most trusted confidants. And so what you're going to hear today is the real deal about what people are telling me drives their engagement at work. But before we get too far into it, what does employee engagement even mean? Really? Like, there are about 150 vendors over in the expo hall that are claiming that they're your ultimate employee engagement solution. And you go up to them and you ask, what does employee engagement mean? And they all give you a different answer. So I'm going to give you my definition. I just made this up. And then you can decide, if you agree with my definition, you can stick around. If you don't agree with my definition, you've still got time to go to another session. So here we go. I think that employee engagement is when your team comes in primed to give it their all, no matter what their role is. They are intrinsically motivated to do their best work. Does that sound like a good definition to everyone? Everyone can agree with that? All right, I don't see anyone leaving, so good. We're off to a good start. And the thing of this is really hard. Right? This is really hard to do, and true employee engagement is very, very rare. 2/3 of Americans, according to Gallup, self-report that they are not engaged with their job. It's an awful lot of people who are coming into work every day and doing their mediocre work at best, right? Almost half of Americans say that they do not perceive their job as a part of their identity. What does that mean? It means they're not going to be loyal to your organizations at all, right? They're not going to come in and give you their passion and their time and their energy. They're going to come in, they're going to collect their paycheck, they're going to do work according to that, and they're going to go home, spend time with their families. And when you look at people who are under 30, that number goes down to 30%, right? Those are your future leaders right there. And you might say to me, Karlyn, look, we know millennials aren't loyal to us. They're job hoppers. We know that. All the research tells us that. And there's truth to that. There's truth to that every generation, when they've been under the age of 30, has moved around jobs quite a bit. That makes sense, right? They're young. They're figuring it out. But you also have a role to play in that. Because when I can't go on LinkedIn without seeing an article about how awful the millennial generation is, and that's how you treat them every day, why would they be loyal to you? Right? So this is a two-way street. We all have a role to play. But this next one is my absolute favorite stat. 65% of workers would choose firing their boss over getting a raise. Right? That kind of matches up with that unengagement number, doesn't it? 65% of workers would choose firing their boss. That is absolutely crazy. And I looked at a lot of research when I was prepping for this presentation. I looked at all the different polls, all the different data. They all say so many different things. And for me, there's a fundamental distinction that's missing from a lot of the research. And that's that there is, we typically look at people who are either they're satisfied in their job or they're not satisfied in their job, right? They're either happy or they're miserable. There's a whole spectrum in between that gamut, right? There is a difference between not being miserable in your job and being truly happy, right? The people that are miserable, you really can't do a whole lot to help them. The people that are happy, they're fine. It's those people that are in the middle stage. They're just kind of like, meh, I'm coming in, I'm going to collect my paycheck, I'm going to go home. Those are the people you need to worry about, right? Those are the people that you can turn around and bring them to the happy stage. And I use the word happiness a lot because happiness is one of the best emotions there is. And at our core, we are emotional beings. Engagement really comes back to whether or not you're happy, right? And to explain why this is, I'm going to tell you a little story. I'm going to tell you a story about how the brain works. And it all started with me going to a conference. Okay, I live in New Hampshire. I was going to a conference in Austin, Texas one day, and it was like a Sunday morning. It was like 8 o'clock in the morning. I show up at the airport, and I'm finishing my PhD at the time, and so the only book I'd had the foresight to put in my bag was Advanced Quantitative Research. And as thrilling as that topic is, it was not what I wanted to read at 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning. So I went to the airport bookstore, got your typical paperback bestseller, put it in my bag, got on the plane. Sat down next to this really nice-looking older dude, and he's on the phone with his wife, and he's a very nice suit on, and they're laughing and joking, and you can tell the spark is still there after all those years. And I just sit down, calmly open my book, start reading. A couple minutes later, he has to hang up his phone, and he strikes up a conversation with me. And of course, a couple minutes after that, he says, "Oh, what are you reading?" And I don't embarrass easily, but I have to say, I probably turned a little bit red when I showed him my copy of 50 Shades of Grey. And I confess that I was reading smut. And he laughed, and he pulled out his copy of the Wall Street Journal and pointed to not one, not two, but 3 stories about men in very high-level positions having affairs on their wives and having to resign their positions because of it. And he said, "Look, I'm reading smut too." So what does any of that have to do with employee engagement? Not a damn thing. But now I know I have your attention, and here's why. You have to think of the brain as being in 3 parts: the old brain, the middle brain, and the new brain. The old brain was the very first part of our brain to develop way back when we were cavemen, and it is interested in 3 things: survival, food, and sex. And it is constantly scanning our environment, looking for those 3 things. And if it sees it, it perks up like a dog that has just seen a bone. And it says, look, pay attention to that. That's important. That's how I know I have your attention right now, right? Now, it does this subconsciously. We're not aware of our old brain consciously scanning our environment, right? Because that's a ton of information that it's taking in every single second. We take in 11 million pieces of information every single second as our old brain is doing this. We are only consciously aware of about 40 of them. Okay, so huge disconnect. 11 million pieces of information go in, 40 pieces of information go out. I bet every single one of you have experienced this. Think about when you get in your car and you leave work and you drive home and you pull into the driveway and you don't remember driving home. Right? That's because nothing eventful happened on that drive. It was the same thing every day. It's not like you fell asleep. Your old brain was just keeping watch on things. Now, if a dog had run out in front of your car, it would have gone bing. It said, danger, danger, hit the brake. Now, our old brain, it tries very, very hard to make all of our decisions for us. But the thing is, if the decision does not involve food, survival, or sex, it needs a little help. And let's be honest, most of our decisions day to day do not involve those things, right? All of us are very, very blessed. We all have more food than we can ever eat. Very rarely are any of us in any real physical danger. And I mean, come on, like if sex is your primary decision maker, that sounds like a little bit of an HR problem right there. So when those 3 factors aren't involved, it has to consult a friend. It has to consult the midbrain. And the midbrain is where we process all of our emotions. And just like the old brain, we do this subconsciously. So think about when you have gut feelings. You just know something is true, but you don't really know why. That's your middle brain. It's processing a ton of information, delivering you an answer. Think about times when you get in a fight with your spouse, and midway through the fight, you don't remember why you're angry anymore. Yeah, I can see the women in the audience nodding, especially on that one. Yeah, that's your middle brain. So it processes all of our emotions. It also processes all of our nonverbal cues that we see. So anytime you just walk into a room and before anyone has said anything, you know something is wrong, that's your middle brain. So it influences the old brain in all of its decision making. Now, most of us think that we're logical, rational people. But the fact is, we're really not. We make most of our decisions based on our emotions coming out of that middle brain. The problem is the new brain. The new brain is where we process all logic and reason, and it is the only part of the brain that we are consciously aware of. And that's why we think we're logical, rational beings, but we're really making all the decisions behind the scenes with our emotions. And now this next slide is the one you want to take the picture of, okay? Get ready. Oh God, everyone's getting their phones out. Write this one down, put it on a sticky note, put it on your computer monitor when you get back to work. It explains absolutely everything about every situation. Human beings make decisions emotionally, and then they justify them rationally. I'm going to give you a second with that one. All right, so human beings make decisions emotionally, and they justify them rationally. And that's why, guys, that's why you need people to be emotionally connected to their job. Because if they're not emotionally connected to what they're doing, they are not going to be engaged with their work. The term, it's just business, it's not personal, that's such a lie. We spend our lives at work. If we don't take it personally, what the hell are we doing? All right, so you need people to be emotionally connected to their job. How do you do that? Well, there are a couple things you don't do. Organizations try a couple things that don't really work out the way they'd like them to. I'm going to go through those real quick. First of all, it's not about money. Money is the easiest thing in the world to say, if they're not paying me what I'm worth, well, why am I even doing this anyway? Every year around this time, and then again in December, I have to deal with a lot of angry clients that didn't get the raise that they want, and they're blaming all their problems on money. But the thing is, money is the easiest excuse in the world. It is such an excuse to make, because think about it. There was a time when they accepted that job for that paycheck. And they may have negotiated a little bit, and maybe they didn't get everything they wanted, but they accepted that job. And when they accepted that job for that paycheck, they were probably psyched, right? They probably called their friends and family. They maybe went out to celebrate. They posted on Facebook about their new job. They were excited. So something has happened in the meantime, and now they're saying it's all about the money. It is not about the money, all right? Now, here's the thing. I don't want anyone to go back and say, well, Karlyn said money doesn't really matter. Money doesn't really make a difference, so we shouldn't be giving out raises anymore. That's not true, okay? That's not what I'm saying, because money can give you a short-term boost. If you give someone a raise, that makes them excited, right? They get really driven. They get motivated. They get validated. They feel really good. It gives you a short-term boost. It's just not your long-term solution. And the same is true of promotions. Right? It's true, because look, when we get that promotion that we've been angling for months or maybe even years in some cases, it feels so good. It feels so validated. We're so excited to get started in our new role. But then we get started in the new job and we get into it, and that excitement wears off. It's just like buying a new car, right? When you get that new car, it's got that new car smell. You're so excited to drive it all the time. You show it off to your friends. A couple weeks later, the new car smell has worn off. Now, it's still fun to drive the car. It's fine. You don't feel badly about the car, but it's just not exciting you the way it did before. So it's not money. It's not promotions. You know what the next thing people try is? Technology. The newest, shiniest apps that will solve all your employee engagement problems. Again, there are like 150 vendors downstairs that'll help you out with that. But the thing of it is this, and look, the ones that really get me, the apps that really get me are the mindfulness apps. Because look, my company's called Zen Workplace, right? Like I don't exactly hide that I put mindfulness into what I do, but I also live and breathe mindfulness. Like, my friend Talia there, she's shocked that I meditate for at least half an hour a day, right? Like this is part of like who I am. It's part of what I do. And the very first thing that I teach organizations when I'm trying to get them to start using mindfulness strategies with their employees is I say, you've got to stop using technology as a default for human interaction and human emotion. This is not to say that technology can't be very helpful. I don't want to dismiss all the vendors downstairs. But the reality is that we do not emotionally engage with technology. I am a millennial. You will pry my cell phone out of my cold, dead hands. Okay? But you know what? The reality is that when I pull out my cell phone, you'll probably see me downstairs at Harry Connick Jr. lately, and I'm looking at all my comments that I have on Facebook and everything. I'm doing it because I don't want to emotionally engage. I'm doing it because I'm a massive introvert, and when I'm in a small group of people, sometimes I feel really awkward and I just don't know what to say, so I pull out my phone. It's an excuse not to emotionally engage. But I see organizations, they're spending an awful lot of money bringing in these huge technology solutions, and they're saying this is the thing that's going to solve all our problems. I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, and look, like I'm just going to get a little vulnerable here with you guys, all right? I don't normally drink, but there was a lot of vodka one night. I don't know what happened. I'm a sucker for a good dirty martini, and someone just kept putting them in front of me. And I know some of you were on Bourbon Street last night because I saw the pictures on Twitter. But I learned my lesson, so I didn't go out to Bourbon Street last night. I stayed in because at that conference the next day I was in quite a state, I have to tell you. And I went into breakfast and I was trying to send every signal I possibly could, like do not talk to me. I was wearing all black. I had my sunglasses on. I got my breakfast. I went to the furthest table in like the back corner that was completely empty, and I was just staring out angrily, daring everyone to stay away from me, right? And of course, because I'm doing that, and this is a vendor conference put on by a company that does a social recognition tool, and this woman comes up to my completely empty table, sits right next to me. And I'm like, oh, God. And then she starts telling me about the company's tool. And look, I actually like the company's tool. I really do. But she pulled out her phone and she's like, and look at this amazing comment that someone left for me, and I felt so good about this piece of recognition. And because I'm punchy at this point, I look at her and I say, well, if they can say it on their phone, why can't they just say it in person? Right? And she says, well, no, people don't give compliments in person because they don't feel comfortable. Guys, if you can train someone to do something in an app, you can train them to do it in person. It is a skill. It is just like riding a bike. We'll talk about how to do that. So it's not money, it's not promotions, it's not technology. What is it then? We've got to go back to basics. We have got to start cultivating these real, live human connections. Okay, because employee engagement is human. It's individual. It's about the day-to-day experience that all of your employees have. And it's really, really hard to do. Okay, so I'm going to spend the rest of this session giving you some tips and tricks, some easier stuff that you can just start doing immediately, and some harder stuff that's going to take a little bit more time. And where I want to start is with listening. Because listening is, we talk so much in organizations, and most of the time, even when people are being quiet, they're not actually listening. They're just waiting to speak again. Okay? I am continually shocked every single week at how many clients I talk to that I am the only person they have in their professional experience that genuinely listens to them. Because my job is to be their supporter. My job is to be their backbone. My job is to help them achieve their goals. I'm the only person that they have as that sounding board that they can trust, that they can rely on, that they know has their back no matter what. And you know what happens? Look, organizations bring me in to coach their people. Most of the time, I'm not actually doing much coaching at all. I probably shouldn't admit this in polite company, but I'm really not. Right? I'm just listening. I'm asking them the right questions. I'm letting them come to their own conclusions. And when they have someone that does that, their behavior starts to improve. Their productivity goes up. All of a sudden, they're happier at work. They're treating their colleagues better, all because they have that outlet. Now, I know you guys are you're going to say, Karlyn, we're in HR. We listen to people's problems all day long. That's all that we do. But I'm going to challenge you guys a little bit, because how many meetings are you in that you're on your laptop your entire time? How many meetings do you, and even if you're taking notes, even if you're legitimately taking notes on the meeting, people don't feel like you're listening to them when you're typing away on a laptop. How often do you use active listening techniques where you're repeating back to them what they just said to you so that they know that you heard them and understood them and you guys know you have that common ground? How often do you follow up with them after the meeting, even if it's just a check-in, to say, look, I don't know what the solution is to this problem yet, but I just want to let you know that you're still on my mind. I'm still working on it. Sometimes they're not actually looking for you to solve their problem, by the way. Sometimes they just need to use you as a sounding board. They just need to know that someone heard you. And this is the big one, because I see this from a lot of HR folks, maybe not anyone in this room, but here's what happens. Person comes into your office, they tell you what's going on, they tell you about their problems. As soon as they leave, you get on your computer, you type an email to their boss saying so-and-so is just in my office and here's what their problem is and here's all the things you need to know about what they just said to me. Before the person's even back at their desk, their boss has emailed them asking to talk. And all of a sudden, trust is destroyed forever between you and that person. How many times has that happened? And you might have the best intentions when you do this. But again, they're just looking for something to talk to. The reality is, and I hope a lot of you would agree with me on this, people are afraid of you in organizations. People are afraid of HR folks. Now, I hang around HR folks a lot, and I know you guys are some of the nicest, kindest people that genuinely want to help the people that you work with. But to the people that are in your organization, look, they come to you when they have problems, and when you're coming looking for them, why is HR looking for me? Am I in trouble? What did I do wrong? Right? Because they think of you like this. They think of you as the babysitter that's like keeping an eye on things for mom and dad, and you're just going to report back to them, so why should they trust you? You can start to change that. You can start to change that by just having those human conversations with them. I know that you are all incredibly risk-averse people, and rightfully so. But sometimes you need to let that HR guard down and just have a human conversation. Okay, so that's number one, listening. Number two is goals. Goals, goals, goals. And the thing about goals is that goals can be incredibly motivating things. But you know what's not motivating? The annual performance review. No one likes the annual performance review. Employees don't like it. Bosses don't like it. You don't even like the annual performance review if you're honest about it. The only people who like it are the people who don't get feedback from their boss at any other point throughout the year. And they're like, finally, I get to hear how I'm doing. I get to hear some feedback. And so enter continuous performance improvement. And really, you're just taking the annual performance review and you're chopping it up and you're doing it a little bit differently more often throughout the year. Now, that is a marked improvement over the annual performance review. There's no denying that. But if you want to really use goals as motivational tools for your employees, you've got to make them smaller. Because even if you do quarterly reviews, that is still a really long time, right? 90 days is a long time. And people like things that are smaller where they can see what's coming. How many runners are in the room? Any runners? Yeah, we got some runners? Yeah. I don't like it now, but like back in the day, I used to run a lot. And I ran every single distance. I did a lot of 5Ks. I did a lot of marathons. Okay, now for all the runners in my room, here's a little pop quiz. If you have a runner running a 5K, which is 3.1 miles for all the non-runners, and you have a runner running a marathon, which one are they going to run at a faster average pace? 5K. Why? Shorter. The same thing is true at work, guys. When we are in proximity to the finish line, we run faster. And you can actively encourage your managers, because I don't actually think this should come from you, I don't think this should come from HR, but you can encourage your managers to take that annual goal or that quarterly goal or whatever it is and work with their employees to come up with shorter weekly goals. Because if they're constantly kept in a sprint stage, they're constantly going to be running pretty fast. They're going to build momentum. Think about when you have a to-do checklist, right? Which ones are you going to do first? Are you going to check off the low-hanging fruit that you can get done quickly, or are you going to take on the complex projects? You're going to do the shorter stuff, right? So keep everyone in a constant sprint. And to do that, we have to start separating the idea of goals as motivational tools from the annual performance review. Because here's what happens when I tell managers to do this. They tell me, well, HR won't let me do that because the annual performance review is where we set our goals. I'm like, you can use goals separate from the annual performance review. Just have them roll up to it. And they say, no, no, no. HR won't let us do that. You have to give them permission. Okay? And this is super easy because really this can just work into an average one-on-one meeting. Right? And if your managers are not having one-on-one weekly meetings, that is another problem to solve. They need to start doing that immediately. That builds trust. But then they can just meet weekly, discuss what's going on, discuss what obstacles need to get moved out of the way, all that good stuff. All right. And then when people are hitting those small, little, short weekly goals, that's the perfect time to rain as much positivity down on them as you possibly can. Okay, we need to start showering our people with praise and recognition and positive reinforcement. And most managers don't do this very well. And I talk about managers a lot because managers at their core, at all levels in the organization, they create the day-to-day experience for your people. They are in charge of the day-to-day experience. We all know the phrase, you don't quit your job, you quit your boss. Right? If managers are constantly showering praise on people, you've upped the ante that they're going to stay around for, as long as they can, really. But here's the problem. Most managers default to negative feedback. We default to giving out that criticism. We are primed all of our lives to say, you need to accept negative feedback. You need to accept critical feedback. You need to do it. It's the only way you're going to improve. From the time we're little kids, we're taught this. And so that's all we know how to give out, right? Whereas very few of us have been primed throughout our lives to really receive that positive feedback. And that's really the biggest problem. It's not that people don't know that they should be saying nice things to each other. They're just really uncomfortable doing it because we never learned how to receive positive feedback. Doesn't that sound weird? That we don't know how to take compliments? This is especially true of women, by the way. This is especially true of women. What happens, ladies, when you receive a compliment from the boss? Oh, no, 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 it wasn't me, it was the team. And that might be true, but you're deflecting because you don't feel comfortable on some level receiving it. You know, I read an article a couple weeks ago with this woman, and I think she did this on a dating app, where every time a would-be suitor would give her a compliment, like, you got a nice body, or I love your hair, she would say, I know. Or she would say, like, I love it too, right? And you know what happened when she said this to the men giving her compliments? They retracted the compliment. They didn't know how to handle that. They didn't know how to handle when a woman accepted it. So, you know, here's the interaction. You've got a nice body. I know. Well, you don't really have that great of a body. You really need to go to the gym. Like, they legitimately don't know how to deal with that, right? That's just a woman accepting it, owning it, receiving that positive feedback. We need to all learn how to do that better, because the more we learn how to receive positive feedback, the more we're going to give it out. That's why it's got to start somewhere. In my ideal fantasy world, it starts with the CEO, and he does it for all his direct reports, and it rains down across the organization. But it can also start with you. It can also just start with that really optimistic manager that you have. You can start with anyone at any time, but we have to start dishing it out, because look, guys, the way we feel about ourselves indicates how we're going to treat other people. If we're feeling really good about ourselves and really confident and we're having a great day, everything is roses, right? We're able to look on the bright side. We're able to look for opportunities. We're able to be optimistic. On the other hand, if we're not feeling so great about ourselves and we've had a bad morning and we're kind of pissed off at the kids or whatever is going on and we come into work, no one can do right by us. Everything's going wrong, and all of a sudden we're in a victim stage. How we feel about ourselves indicates how we're going to treat other people. The magic ratio of positive to critical feedback that you need to be hitting is 5-to-1, right? It seems like a lot, right? It seems like a lot of positive feedback to be giving out. And that's because you need to counterbalance the fact that we intrinsically put more weight on negative feedback. And this is evolutionary as well, right? Because way back when we were cavemen again and we were out in the field and we were hunting and gathering dinner and doing all that stuff, the bushes rustle over there. Well, it could be the wind or it could be a lion. Lion coming to eat us, and all of a sudden, if we don't assume the worst case scenario, we're going to end up being dinner instead of collecting dinner, right? Same is true at work. We automatically put more weight on the negative feedback, and that's why you have got to stop sandwiching feedback. You've got to stop doing this. You know, the first paragraph of that report was really, really great, but the rest of it sucked. But really, great effort. Really great effort. Do you think they heard that the first paragraph was really great? Do you think they even cared? They knew you were just priming them to hit them over the head with a piece of negative feedback anyway, right? And don't assume that people think that just because you didn't give them a critique on something that means you did well. I have to tell people all the time when they have a boss that isn't inclined to do this yet, well, if you're not getting negative feedback on it, it means you probably did good. They don't hear it that way. You need to overtly tell people when they're doing good. You need to tell them early, you need to tell them often, you need to tell them about the little things just as much as you tell them about the big things. It's going to feel weird when you first start doing it. Stick with it, you're going to get more comfortable with it. And the other thing too is it doesn't have to all be on you. It doesn't have to all be on the boss. You can put mechanisms in place to get people to be giving that positive feedback to each other. Right? There's one exercise I heard of, and I've implemented it with a few clients, called the 15-minute daily cuddle, where teams basically get together and for 15 minutes in the morning, and they can do one of two things in that meeting. They either give each other a piece of positive feedback or they ask for help from someone. Brilliant. You've already knocked some positive feedback off the plate and you don't even have to do anything, right? Super, super simple. But the other thing is that you have to start getting people to say nice things about themselves. We are so hesitant to toot our own horns, right? It's okay to brag a little bit. It's okay to talk about the good things that you're doing. It's okay to encourage your people to do this. I have a lot of managers that every week in their one-on-one meeting with their people, they ask, what's something you're really proud of that you've done this week? What's something really awesome that you've done this week? What a great way to start off a one-on-one meeting, right? By getting them to say something nice about themselves. Now, again, your people are going to feel really weird when you first start doing this, but you just keep it consistent, you keep doing it over and over again, they're going to get more comfortable with it. Another exercise I do with a lot of my clients is I have them display the work they're really proud of. So if you've got like a designer or marketer, they hang up pictures of their campaigns in their office that they really, really like. If you have an event person or maybe you work for a nonprofit, you hang up pictures of people's lives that you're impacting, all that good stuff. Now, if you work at a job that doesn't quite have that visual nature to it, you can just make a list. Make a list of the projects you work on that you're really, really proud of. Put that in your cubicle or at your desk or wherever. Now remember, we take in 11 million pieces of information. We are conscious of 40 of them, right? Even if you just have that list displayed, it's registering in your brain whether you're consciously looking at it or not. And you know what happens? You know what happens when people do this? I don't even have to coach them on it. They start looking at that list when they're working on something and they say, would I put this project on the list? Would I hang this up? Would I display it? Am I really proud of it? All of a sudden, the quality of their work starts going up. Simple as displaying what they're really, really proud of. And the last thing in this section is, look, if you have people that are coming to you and saying, well, I'm giving out a lot of positive feedback. I already do this. Well, okay. Have them keep track of it. Have them write it down. People normally don't give out as much positive feedback as they think they are. Okay, so just have them keep track of it, do a little assessment, have them look for areas they can improve. It's really that simple. And the thing of it is too, when we're tracking stuff, we tend to do more of the good stuff because we want to be able to hand that list in and say that we did more of that. You know what else the positive feedback is going to do? Is it's really going to increase the bonds among your workforce. All right, so you really have to work on the bonds at work. You have to work on those relationships. Again, the idea that it's not personal, it's business, is a lie. It's the most personal thing there is. And the relationships that people have at work, they create the day-to-day experience. When you feel like you're bonded with your coworkers, you don't want to let them down. You don't want to miss a deadline. You don't want to let them down because something isn't done as well as it possibly could be. You want to be able to pick them up. This all comes down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Does everyone remember this from like Psychology 101? Yeah, exactly. So what is this? Just for a quick review. So we have to be safe. We have to know that someone's not going to come in and harm us. That's our base need. Then we need to know, and when it comes to work, that basically means we have to know we're not going to lose our job. If people are in fear of losing their job, they're not going to do their best work. What's next on that list? Belongingness and love. They have to know they're part of a group. They have to know they're part of a team. And if they don't get that, your employee engagement really comes up at the top, right? So if we're not providing safe environments that are welcoming, where people feel like part of a team, they're not going to do their best work. It really is that simple. Basic psychology, right? So don't be afraid to create personal relationships with people. Don't be afraid to get to know people. Don't be afraid to get to know what they like to do outside of work, what their passion is, where they're from, what their family's like, what their story is. Encourage your managers to get to know them too. It seems so simple, but it makes such a difference. You're all of a sudden going to see that team developing loyalty for that manager in a way they didn't have before. They're going to be happier to come in and work for them. They're going to be happy to come in and serve them. They're going to be happy to do work that lifts the entire team up because they've got those bonds. All right? And encourage all those informal relationships that are going on in the office. You've got to encourage these things. So when people are just like hanging out in the kitchen, laughing and joking, and maybe it seems like they're not really doing work, well, that's okay, because they're building those bonds. They're building those things that when they're deep down in that project and they have to stay in the office until 4:30 in the morning, which literally just happened to one of my clients last night, everyone's okay with it because they've developed those bonds, they've developed those informal relationships. I'm gonna tell you a story. I used to work for oh my God, she was like the most toxic person I've ever met in my life, the CEO. And the person that I worked directly for, my boss, who was the VP, was not that much better. But the core group of people I worked with, we all really had fun. We loved each other. We joked. We had a good time. We had really transparent, open communication. It was so, so great. Now, the downfall was that our office space was like right down the hall from the CEO. So every time we were laughing and joking and having a good time, the CEO could hear it. One day, the CEO complained to my boss, and the boss hauled us all into a conference room and said, and this is not actually an exaggeration, this is actually what happened. You guys all need to sit down at your computers and keep your head down and don't talk to anyone, and I don't want to hear any laughing. And if you need something from someone, you send them an email. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And I sat at the head of the conference table, and I went like this. Like, did that just happen? Am I crazy? What the hell is going on? I lasted at that job 2 more weeks after that, because it's crazy, right? Why would you do that? If you have a team that's working really well together, that trusts one another, they're going to do more innovative work. We have learned this from the research that comes out of Google. If you have psychological safety on a team, they're going to do better, more innovative work because they trust each other. They can fail. They can communicate openly. They know they have each other's back. It makes a ton of difference. So if your teams don't have those informal relationships in organizations, look for ways to create them. Do social events, do group outings, do retreats, do whatever you need to do from an HR perspective to encourage those informal relationships. The other thing you need to do is let people know about the impact that they're having. because we all need to know that what we do every single day matters to someone else. And I'm not saying in a big picture perspective, like some of you work for companies that are changing the world, and that's all fine and great, but we want to know that our work matters to people that we know, to people that we see every day, whether that be clients, customers, colleagues, whatever it is, we want to know that our work matters. So here's some examples. I know some CEOs that would be so lost without their executive assistant. It is ridiculous. All right, I bet you know a lot of them too. They wouldn't know what to do if their executive assistant quit. Her work matters to him. When you have a really great waiter or like a great bartender, like I travel a lot. I was in the Atlanta airport last week. I had a 4-hour layover. I kind of parked myself in one of their restaurants. I had the best waiter I have ever had. She was funny. She lifted me up. I had been traveling all day and I just wanted to go home and see my dogs. And my husband too, but mostly the dogs. And she made me laugh and she took care of me and she made my day and I tipped her very well, but I also left her a note saying, thank you, I really needed that. You made a difference in my day. Think about the enthusiastic, eager young professional that's just graduated from school and they have that great beginner's mindset and they just want to come in and tackle everything and they just want to do good work. I was coaching a client a couple weeks ago and he's not that old. He's like 25, 26 or something, but they've just hired this new person that's in a very similar job to him and she's right out of school and he said, she reminded me why I love doing what I do every day. I said, did you tell her that? He said, no, I'm not going to say that. I would be embarrassed. I said, tell her that. She needs to know that that eagerness means something, that her contribution matters. I even think of the people here at the conference, right? Guys, I gotta tell you, I do a lot of speaking. I have had such a great experience with the people at this conference. First of all, like Jamie and John, who set up this awesome videographer and just made things super, super easy for me. It was so great. They made my day by that. And I don't know if there are any other speakers in the room, but Erin Sullivan, who coordinates all the speakers at SHRM, please someone tweet at her right now, because I haven't seen her at the conference, and tell her Karlyn says that she's really, really awesome. She makes things so much easier, and she's coordinating speakers, and there's so many egos involved with speakers. So it can't be the easiest thing in the world, but she makes it so easy. So things like that, when people really make your day, when people make your life easier, tell them that. And when employees come to you and they tell you about good things their coworkers are doing, remind them, go tell them. Tell them, make their day. It's going to make them smile. It's a good thing. Well, and the last thing you want to do is, again, if you have people who are struggling in this area, have them keep track of it. I have a coaching client who he's very senior in the organization and he can be very blunt. He can be very, very direct, but he has someone working for him that she's just nice and she makes all the feedback that goes out to people really easy, and you know that kind of person that you leave and you're just smiling no matter what she says to you, right? And he said to me one day, he said, she can say the most critical things to people, but they always leave smiling. And I don't know how to do that. And I said, okay, well, let's give it a try. Make that your goal. Make that your goal for the next week, to have people leave a conversation with you and walk away smiling. First week, he only did it once, right? But you know what? If he did it once, he can do it again. And if he did it again, he can keep on going and keep on going. If you have people keep track of something, you're consciously keeping it top of mind for them. All right? But this last one I'm going to talk about is really the biggest. We're going to talk about empowerment. All right, guys, here's the deal. I'm about to go on a bit of a rant. I'm praying my voice holds out. We're just going to cross our fingers because this is an important one. Powerlessness in organizations is a huge, huge problem. Most of the people in this room, I'm going to bet, have a certain degree of powerlessness every single day in their jobs. And if you have it, a lot of your coworkers do too. And look, we have been primed for this. We've been primed for this all our lives. From the time we're little kids, we're taught we need to follow the rules and stay in line and what to wear and what to think and what to say, and don't have any original ideas. And we can get into a conversation about the quality of the educational system for sure. But look, this is what it is. This is the reality. We are told to follow the rules all day long. And all of a sudden, we go through 12, 16, in my case, 25 years of education, and all of a sudden we graduate. and we get our degree and we move out of our parents' house and we start trying to grasp at individuality when we're that eager young professional. And even then, the organizations that we work for, most of the time, they beat it out of us right quick. And it could be a very traditional organization where you're wearing like suits, or it could be a startup where you're wearing skinny jeans and stuff like that. It doesn't really matter, because most organizations are not looking for original voices. They're looking for people to come in and take orders. And so we do that. Young professionals do that. They come in, they take orders, they think, I'm paying my dues. And then when I get promoted to a manager, man, I'm going to be able to make decisions then. I'm going to be able to make calls. Can managers actually make decisions? No. I've been a manager in 2 different organizations. I wasn't actually managing anything in either of those jobs, right? I wasn't managing people. I wasn't managing projects. I don't know what the heck I was managing. But they gave me the title because they wanted to be able to give me a promotion. They wanted to be able to give me a raise. But title no longer means that you have decision-making power. And then they get promoted to that, and you think, oh, well, if I can just get to that director level, I'm going to be able to make decisions then. Is that true? No. I've been a director in 4 different organizations. In none of those organizations was I in control of my own budget. I was like, I had a budget, but I couldn't actually make decisions about it. My boss could make decisions about my budget, but I couldn't. In none of those organizations could I make decisions about my own staff. Besides the summer intern, I could pick out the summer intern, right? That was the big one. In none of those organizations could I buy a $200 piece of office furniture without going through 19 rounds of approval. I had my own budget. Like, that was crazy. But let me tell you about the straw that broke the camel's back for me. Let me tell you about the granola bar. The granola bar incident of 2015. So I was at a conference. I was at a conference a lot like this one. I was in an organization. I was a director with my own budget and everything. And I don't eat a lot of meat typically, and I definitely don't eat meat at like conferences. And it's just a bad idea, guys, really. And so I went to breakfast one morning, and the only thing they were serving were these breakfast sandwiches that had like ham and eggs in them. And I'm like, I'm not eating this. And I went to the hotel coffee shop, and I bought a granola bar. I bought a $2 granola bar at the hotel coffee shop. I was like, this is fine, whatever. Didn't think anything of it. Went back to the office, did my expense report. A week later, I got it back with a sternly worded note that I was not allowed to buy the $2 granola bar. And I was like, you know, it's not about the $2. Look, I pay $7 for a cup of coffee at Starbucks. It is not about the $2 granola bar. It's about, if you're going to ding me on this one, if you're not going to allow me to make decisions about what I put in my body, when I have a T&E budget for a $2 granola bar, are you kidding me? Am I going to be able to make any decisions in this job ever? Ever? No. And so, look, I'm looking at this situation, and I'm like, you know, and I know policy and procedure have to be followed, right? If I buy a granola bar, everyone's going to buy a granola bar. It's going to be anarchy. It's going to cost the organization $100 extra a year. I mean, my God. And another thing that really got me is I know for a fact that there was a meeting with at least 2 vice presidents and 2 other directors to discuss my $2 granola bar. How much money did that cost? Right? And my point here is this. This is the day-to-day experience. This is the thing that I remember about this organization. It's this little stuff that happens every day that kills your employee engagement. It's the little things. It's not the big things, right? This is the day-to-day. And we've started to reserve this type of empowerment over the most basic little things for those at the vice president level. That's crazy. People do not engage with things that they do not have control over. They don't. There's no emotional connection to be made. And you're saying, well, we're paying them to do a job. We're paying them to come in and do what we tell them to do. Well, that's the bare minimum. You're giving them a paycheck. Great, congratulations. You're giving them the bare minimum. If you're giving them the bare minimum, why would you expect them to give any more? You have got to start pushing empowerment down to other levels. And there's a business case to do this. There is an absolute business, money only, take all the people like happy fluffy stuff out of it. There is a business case to be made for this, because if you take something that a senior vice president is doing right now and you give it to a director who is probably perfectly qualified to do that thing, you're executing it for less money. You're saving the organization money. All right? But you know what else happens when you do this? People start improving quality. You're also going to see a boost in productivity, right? Because when people really start owning things, they take more care with it. They want to do more. They get really excited about it. I've implemented stuff to help empowerment across organizations that I work with. I see productivity increases of 20 to 30%. It's no joke. It doesn't happen right away. It happens over a 6 month to a year of time. But it's a massive productivity increase for the same amount of money. You're also going to see that quality going up because they're taking more care in what they're doing. So you're saving money, you're increasing productivity, you're increasing quality. Why aren't organizations doing this? Because it's really, really hard, right? Because you have people at the senior executive level who, after years of clawing their way up the organization, they finally can make decisions. They had to pay their dues. Everyone underneath them should have to pay theirs. I'll tell you guys what, I don't have a problem getting middle managers to do this. When I'm doing my manager training, I do not have a problem getting people at the mid-level to empower their employees. Here's the biggest objection that I hear. Why should I do it if my boss isn't doing it for me? Biggest objection I hear, but they cannot influence their boss to empower them. They can't go to their boss and say, you know, I'd really do much better work if you were empowering me day to day. It seems self-serving. They can't make that argument. But you guys can. Everyone in this room can make that argument, because when you make that argument from a strategic perspective, it doesn't seem self-serving. Okay? So this is my challenge to you. This is my big ask. You do the rest of this stuff in the presentation, you're going to go back, it's going to be fine. You're going to see some market improvements. It's going to be fine, but this is the big one. This is the game changer, because people in HR can influence at the most senior levels in the organization. If you can't do it, talk to your boss about it. All right, if your boss can't do it, have them talk to their boss. I don't care who it is, but eventually you're going to get to someone that has the ear of the president or the CEO. And they need to say that this should be an organizational imperative, that we have to start pushing empowerment down in our organization to get people to take more ownership of their work. And guess what, guys? If you try to do this once and you get told no, you go back and you try again. If you get told no again, you go back and you try again. I have coached executives who have admitted to me point blank that they almost always push back on an idea the first time they hear it. It doesn't matter if they love the idea or not. They're testing you to see how confident you are in that idea. Because if you fall, if you stop pushing at the first sign of resistance, why should they have any faith that you're going to implement it? So they push back to test you. They want to see you come back. They know that if you come back over and over and over again with the same idea, you mean business. And if you do it really well, one day they're going to start talking about it like it was their idea. Right? All of a sudden in meetings, it's going to be their idea, and you just let it be. You don't try to take credit for it. They know where it came from. Don't worry about it. They know. So that's my big ask. You all have the type of influence that people in your line positions can't have when it comes to this issue. So go back to your organizations, try as best you can to get that empowerment distributed down. All right, guys, that's all I have. I hope you have got some good ideas today. Oops.